Produced by Victoire.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Stylin', the podcast. I am one of your co-stars, the Master, Emir, along with my co-star, ladies and gentlemen. He is a former WWE and AEW superstar. He's a former tag team champion. In fact, he is the stylist, Rico Casatino.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming to the show. It's going to be another great show. We have two special guests that are just amazing. And one of our guests, he and I have a same person connection, and we'll get into it into the show. But I'd like to do something, and I'd like you to do something. What I'd like you to do is hit that subscribe button. Subscribe, like, and you know what? Share it with your friends because they will enjoy it as much as you.
Yeah, Rico, thank you for that. Indeed, lay the smackdown on that subscribe button. Absolutely, you punish that subscribe button.
Punish it.
But without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, let us introduce our special guest. First, returning to the podcast, he is an extended family member now of the Masters of Wrestling of Stylin'. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back Pastor Andy.
Always great to be here, man. Love it.
And you'll see at the bottom right hand of your screen right now, ladies and gentlemen, this is a first time appearing here on Stylin' and the Masters of Wrestling. He is from the golden era, I'd say still the golden era of professional wrestling, the Monday Night Wars, WCW. Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, he was part of Raven's flock. He is LODI.
Hey, guys, thanks for having me, man. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
It's an honor that you're here, LODI.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, man.
An absolute pleasure. And as you said, Rico, at the top of the hour, there's a lot of similarities between you and LODI. A lot. Not just the sideburns, right? No. But there are a lot of similarities. But I tell you what, Rico, to get some of your questions out of the way first, I'm going to kick it to you this week. So you can kick us off here with LODI this week. There you go. All right.
LODI.
Yes, sir.
You were the West Hollywood Blondes.
Yeah.
Brothers, you did my second character and stuff like that. And then you went to the Flock, correct?
Flock first, then the West Hollywood Blondes.
Okay, Flock first.
Yep.
And that was Raven, correct?
Yes, sir.
And I've told this story. I'm going to say it again. One day at a house show, I was, just called up. So one day I'd be a face, one day I'd be a heel, this and that. And I happened to get with Scott Raven. And he looked at me and he goes, "What do you like being?" I said, "I like being a heel." He goes, "Well, then you got to do something about your face." I went, "What?" He goes, "You're too pretty." He says, "Grow some sideburns." But he wanted me to do the honky tonk sideburns or the rock sideburns. And I just went with Wolverine. How did you get the sideburns?
Raven, same speech.
Really?
Exact same speech. I've heard him tell 100 guys that. And
my gosh.
That's his spiel. Get some sideburns and get a rain jacket. That's his two big piece of advice for up and coming wrestlers, especially if you're going to be a heel. He does everything he can to, again, like Rico said, you're too pretty. We need to get some facial hair. Grow some. I think. He Jerry Reed or something with the sideburns he wanted from me. He always has a different character we throw out in his mind he would see, because we started out with the Billy Idol character, which obviously was all Raven's idea when he got.
Fans, the time has come for you to flex your appreciation in style. The Masters of Wrestling delivers the most truthful pro wrestling content week in, week out. And now we want you to show your support wherever you go. Power and Glory, the podcast t-shirts. Order yours now. Stylin', the podcast t-shirts. Order yours now. To order your t-shirt and for shipping information, use the email address in the description of this video. The Masters of Wrestling. Order your t-shirts now.
See, because we started out with the Billy Idol character, which obviously was all Raven's idea when he got me my start in the flock. And then I probably was on TV for a couple of weeks. It's like, you're too pretty. We need to do something to change it up there. He's let's grow some sideburns. And I was like, what? And the sideburns were there in a month, so my facial hair grows ridiculously fast. So if you look back through my pictures, you see all these different crazy concoctions of facial hair. I jokingly tell people I'm a facial hair artiste. It grows out so fast I can change it pretty much weekly.
Yeah, my beard grows so fast. My girl tells me, you know, I cannot shave for 4 days, and if I shave, boop, here they come.
Boom.
I wish it grew back here. I mean, it's growing now, but I wish here was here.
Yeah.
Well,
God's cruel joke.
Well, I tell you what, gentlemen. I looked into hymns. Have you guys heard of hymns? Have any of you heard of hymns?
Yes.
Yeah. So I looked into hymns, and I keep hearing great reports about this stuff. However, there are some side effects, of course, with anything. But I don't know. People are saying that hymns is this new breakthrough. I mean, Rico, what do you use? You use
I went back to the original Rogaine, but you know, because I'm getting a little thin here, but it's growing back, and I did have a good patch back here, but now it's growing in.
Yeah.
So, but you got to do it and stick to it. I tried it years ago, but I didn't stick to it.
Mhm.
My girl makes me stick to it. Have you done this? Have you done that? Yes, dear. Yes, dear.
Damn.
a reminder. So Pastor Andy, Lodi, how did the two of you meet?
Wow. Well, it was a wrestling connection. I guess the first time Brad Lodi was in town doing a little independent show for a guy that I knew, and we met, we hit it off, and we've been buddies for what now? 15 years.
It's been a while, Andy.
It's been a long time, man. And
Yes,
you know
sir.
the hair conversation. I lost that fight 30 years ago.
I gave up on that one. I'm good with shaving.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, Lodi, you're in great shape. I just watched a couple of your independents.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, you're
very
in great
much.
shape and well represented. And like I said, I watched matches and I was amazed, you know, and I'm not going to say how old you are, but
No, I
ask
can't.
you.
I turned 55 next month.
Yep.
55.
Yes,
Yep.
sir.
Yeah.
I can't remember that. Too many chair shots. Dudley's put me through too many tables.
Ditto. Yeah.
It's incredible.
I'll be 64 in October.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
it's
But I
incredible.
started late.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's incredible always for me to think that because obviously, you know, I always tell Rico, Lodi, you know, when I grew up, I was a kid watching Rico. So I was even younger when I was watching you, Lodi.
Right.
It's just strange for me because I still see you guys. Well, you know, like I said, you're both tremendous shape. You both look, you know, you do not look your ages at all. So I mean, that's a blessing and a half. What about like aches and pains, Lodi, and stuff like that? Are you good? Are you?
Well, that's a whole nother podcast.
I was going to say, brother, you better be honest because I know the truth.
Andy knows the truth, and I'll give you a small glimpse into this.
Yeah.
And this is God's got His hand on me in this, and I wouldn't be here if it wasn't because of it. A lot of guys have the neck fusions, have a surgery, and a lot of them come back after one. A lot of them quit after one. Some of them have two and come back. I've had three.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
I am fused from C2 to T2, and I'm actually in the process. Andy knows this, and most of my wrestling students and close friends know I'm in line for my fourth one. I've got another ruptured disc in my neck right now.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I'm looking at number 4.
No.
Oh, God be with you.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say it at the end of the podcast, but I want to say it now to you, is what the mind can conceive, the heart can achieve.
Yes, sir.
You know, and people only limit themselves. So many people out there need, and especially in this day, in this time, with so much video, television, negative people want to pull you down instead of lift you up. You got to believe in yourself.
Yep.
And, you know, if this works, Lodi, and you can go on. You're going to be a testament. That's going to be a testament.
Thank you. Like I said, I've got a great healer in the fact that he's brought me back from 3 of those already and still allows me to go out and wrestle and perform the way I do. I'm very blessed. So I'm very
Well,
thankful for that.
from what I saw, you're still sharp.
Thank you.
Not only, and he's not telling you the whole story. Not only has he blessed him through all that, but this man has also had a massive heart attack with bypass surgery, and he survived that as well. So,
Oh gosh, wow, Lodi.
2 years
Praise
ago,
God.
I had a heart attack in the ring, Rico, in the
Oh,
in the
no.
middle of a match.
Oh my
Working
gosh.
with one of my good friends who's at NXT now, Saquon Sugars. We were in the ring here, not far from Charlotte, and I had a heart attack in the ring and drove myself to the hospital. And 3 days later, they were going to give me a triple bypass and ended up they found 2 more blockages. So I had a quintuple bypass in 2023.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
well,
But again, I
just
talked to you about that great healer I know.
Yeah.
I wrestled 6 months later.
yep.
That's a
There you
miracle
go.
right there. So
Yeah.
God's definitely got plans.
Without a doubt.
Yeah, it's amazing. And you know what? And I want to bring this up, switching gears. So Lodi, I did read a little bit online about how it's such a blessing that you can go and wrestle now and
Yes,
share
sir.
your testimony.
Yeah.
Because this is the big thing. Pastor and I did a couple of weeks ago, we did an episode on role models. And Rico and I talk about this all the time. You know, like, because I've just started the past year on the independent circuit out here in California.
Okay.
And it's just the blessing is to be able to connect with the fans afterwards and then again give your testimony, share the gospel. I mean, it's no greater platform. You are a figure. So what is that like for you now? Do you get to do it, you know, as much as you want, or
Obviously I don't get to do it as much as I want, because if I could, I would do it every night of my life.
yeah.
It's the greatest thing. And I've back in 2014, 15 or so, maybe a little earlier, maybe 2013, I started working with a group out of Texas. It was the Christian Wrestling Federation, and they've been around for 20 some odd years. And they go out with Christian wrestlers and put on a show and have somebody give their testimony. Someone brings a message at the end. And I work for them a couple of times a year. But on top of that, we've been able to do that some here in the Carolinas. And to be able to go out and wrestle, and even on some secular shows, they'll allow me to speak at intermission and give my testimony. There are more Christian wrestling groups popping up now. There's a couple out of Georgia that I work for.
Yeah.
And to have that opportunity to take my faith and take wrestling and put the two things I love the most and put them together and go, there's no greater feeling in the world than to do that. And I don't want to hijack the show, but something that happened about a month and a half ago, maybe 2 months ago.
Hijack it.
I got it. It's a quick story, but it's a great one, and it
Good.
answers this question ideally. We did a 3-match card for a youth group down in Seneca, South Carolina. It's down at Anderson, last exit if you go down 85 before you hit Georgia. And there's about 180 kids there for a group event. It was a church that has multi-campuses, so it was a youth night, and we had 3 matches, and I gave my testimony afterwards, and it's 6th grade through 12th grade. And I wrapped up my testimony, my message, and we do an altar call. And we had, out of those 180 kids, we had 22 give their lives to Christ that night.
That's amazing.
And
Amen.
to stand there in the ring and watch 22 young kids raise their hand and get off to a start like that at that age is it always does, but it left me in tears.
Yeah.
It just, I'm standing in the ring and I'm bawling like a little kid, you know, because I'm just so overwhelmed the fact that I get to go out and wrestle and then turn around and speak to these kids and have them respond that way is just a really cool blessing. And I'm so thankful that God has allowed me to do that.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
You know, I know exactly how you feel, Lodi.
awesome.
Exactly. I didn't do it in wrestling,
Okay.
but Pastor Andy, do you remember John Jacobs and the Power Team?
Oh yeah.
Okay. After American Gladiators, a gentleman, God rest his soul, put me in touch with John Jacobs. And because of the American Gladiator fame at that time in the 90s, John said, okay, I'll give you a 2-week tryout. And I said, okay, I'll try out for 2 weeks. Ended up being a 2.5-year stint.
Yeah. Did you
with
work
John
with Jerry
Jacobs.
West at all? Was Jerry West a part of your team when you were in there? Because
No, no.
he was part of that too, but it may have been
Yeah.
different.
Mike Hagan, Barry, uh, Craig, I can't remember last names. Excuse me, God's talking. Thunder. But I was able to be part of the power team, and with
That's awesome.
that worldly fame, which to me it was just me doing what I do. I don't put anything special but I got to give my testimony. And I went to AIM, Athletes International Ministry. I got invited, not knowing where I was going. I thought it was just a celebrity get together and we all talk. Well, Larry Kirchhoff uh, paid my way there, and first person to meet me in the lobby, because I'm wearing my white American Gladiator shirt, my championship belt. I'm coming in. Meadowlark Lemon approaches me and he goes, "Hey, I want you to be on my show." Oh, okay. So I change, I get on his show, and it's a live show, and he leads me to Christ
Wow.
right there
Wow. That's
on
awesome.
his show.
That's awesome.
And I accepted Jesus there, and I became a Christian, and then going to Bible study and nurturing my faith. Tom Sirotnik, which was one of my guidance pastors, introduced me to John Jacobs. And
That's
then I got to
awesome.
go around the world, just like Lodi did, and give my testimony, and then break the bricks and bats and ice, whatever it was, stupid
Right.
stuff. But it got the kids' attention.
Yep.
And what we did during the day is we went to high schools and stuff like that, gave our testimonies. We couldn't mention Jesus or God, but we invited them to the night show, and that's where they got to hear our testimonies and stuff like that.
That's awesome.
And everybody in the team was just wonderful. There wasn't a better time in my life, but I understand what Lodi is saying. It would bring me to tears when it was my turn to give my testimony and stuff like that, and watch the altar call and how many people would just step out of the audience and accept Christ as their Lord and Savior.
It's
It
beautiful.
was
It's a
Pastor,
beautiful-
so yeah, it's an amazing testimony for so many guys. And Pastor, I wanted to bring you in on this one because I do see that God's moving in professional wrestling. I mean, it's undeniable. Lodi, the guys like yourself, Jake the Snake, Ted DiBiase, Nikita Koloff. I mean, some of these big Undertaker now. The other day I was going to bring that up as well to you, Lodi. Eric Bischoff. I actually heard Eric talk about, since the passing of Hogan, he mentioned Christ, and now he's
Right.
moving back towards Christ. So, do you think, I mean, Pastor, do you think that wrestling, what is it about wrestling that is allowing God? It seems like the biggest industry, because the music industry, it's not happening.
Yeah.
Movies, it's not happening. Right. So, but wrestling, there's a huge shift by a lot of guys that we grew up watching.
Yeah.
Dare I say, idolizing at one time.
Well, I think if I take it back to like growing up in the era that I grew up in, of course, my connection, through all of that is not only a lifelong fan, but like with our, connections through all these things. I mean, Ted DiBiase was who led me to the Lord, and so we all through this. But I think one of the things, and Lodi, you can think about this too. One of the cool things that Lodi and I have done together, and he started it a couple of years ago, is called Weight Room Revival, and we preach right from the wrestling ring, and we have a room full of guys, and then we broadcast it live, and we sometimes have 1,000 people listening, and
That's
but it's a beautiful thing. But I think to kind of narrow down the idea of that question is wrestling has always been real. Now, bear with me on this, because these guys and gals really exist. They're not like movie stars that you can't get to. These guys from back in my day, now of course it's a little different now, but back in my day, and Brad, you probably remember this. You could go to the corner of the ring with your little autograph book, and you could meet Johnny Weaver or Boo or what. That was real. You could touch these people. They were tangible. They were real. They weren't pretend characters that you would never meet through an age. These were and I think like within our circles, these guys are friends. I mean, Lodi and Nikita and Ted, these guys know our phones are in my telephone. I mean, these people are real. And I think that fans, if we use that term, they still, even today, in the bigger names and this stuff like that, still see all the boys, all they as real, like real people. And I think the connection that we can have and whatever platforms we've been given, whether it's through the business or associated with the business or whatever, is that there's still a voice there. Even if you've been off of TV or whatever, there's still a voice there. You mentioned the Million Dollar Man, you mentioned the Russian Nightmare. Everybody still knows if you've been around any length of time. And Brad's first meeting, Nikita came and spoke, and Chad Lale, and I've had the blessing to speak there 4 times, and there's been other people. Magnum TA was there, different ones, and this stuff still matters. So long answer. I'm still a preacher, but it's
Preach,
like,
preach, brother, preach.
I think that's the. I don't know. What do you think, Brad? Is that still maybe the reality? People, they see us as real.
I agree. That is a big part of it. And and one thing Nikita and I have talked about, he pointed out to me that we think, and I have to agree with him. He first gave this to me, and I'm going to steal it from him. But the entire time I was wrestling, and Nikita said the same thing. We got up in the morning, we caught a plane flight, we flew somewhere, we stood up in front of, 20,000 people, 30,000, whatever the house was that night, and we performed, we cut a promo, whatever we did, and we spent all that time feeling like we were trying to become better wrestlers and better performers. But what God was doing with us was using that platform to give us, a platform, but also the ability to go out to stand in front of people in basically our underwear and not be ashamed of anything. And if you can do that, you can go out and share the gospel anywhere.
Right.
And the whole time we thought we were trying to become better wrestlers and better performers. God was just preparing us to do what we do now. Because Nikita said, Lodi, we still do the same thing. We're itinerant evangelists. We get up, we go to the airport, or we drive to a town, and we go stand in front of a church or a school or whatever, people we don't know. But again, that's where the whole Team Fearless thing comes from. With my old tag team partner in our wrestling school, and in the name Team Fearless, we're fearless to stand on any street corner, any wrestling venue or locker room and talk about our love for Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
And when I was at WCW, and Andy and I have talked about this in the 90s and in the early 2000s, Jesus and the Bible and prayer was a taboo subject. You never heard about it. It didn't come up. And it was the same in the indie locker rooms.
Yeah.
But throughout the Carolinas and into Georgia and Virginia and Tennessee and the South and the area where I'm from,
The Bible Belt.
so many of the local indie guys, though, that were on TV, now, like going back to like Gunner, like Chad Lale and Caprice Coleman for Ring of Honor, my tag team partner, Scotty Matthews, so many of us have become outwardly sharing our faith in and out of the ring and walking it, that when we're in locker rooms now, Rico, you'd love this. I can be on one side of the locker room and I'll hear someone cussing on the other side and somebody yell, "Hey, Lodi's in here." And all you hear is like, "Sorry, Uncle Lodi, I didn't know you were in here." And they apologize for cussing in the locker room. And that is something I didn't go out of. I've never once chastised somebody in the locker room for using bad language, especially at WCW. I would have never done that. But because they have that kind of respect for the walk I have now, and a lot of the other guys that are doing it, they have that kind of respect. And it's permeated the locker room, and I think it's come across. And I have kids come to my table intermission or before the show or afterwards, and they see my pictures, and there's a Bible verse on there. They're like, "You're a wrestler that loves Jesus, dude. That's cool." So it's just changed a lot since I was younger and broke in the business. And I echo what you said, that I've seen a bigger shift there, of guys just being, like Shawn Michaels and Sting. We didn't bring them up, but both of them are very open about their faith.
Yeah.
What verse did you use, Lodi?
Excuse me?
What verse did you use on your photo?
Philippians 4:13.
That's what I used.
It's on all my pictures. It's on all my
exactly
shirts.
what I used.
Yeah,
You
that's
can
my
do
favorite
all
one.
things through Christ.
Yes, sir. All things.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So you mentioned how back in the day, this would have been a little bit before you started, but in center stage theater, when they used to do the old TV tapings. George South was getting ready to go out to the ring, and he had John 3:16 on the back of his tights, and they made him turn it. They made him take them off and turn them inside out.
Right.
Really?
You can't have that on TV. And George will tell you that as part of his testimony. I mean,
Yeah.
he looks back on that with a whole different feeling now, with maybe a little remorse or regret. But at the time, he's on the way to the ring to work a match, and but yeah, that was they said we can't have that on TV, and that was
Right.
early '90s when that would have happened, because
Yeah.
George was one of the main guys back then as far as putting people over. And
Yep.
but George, I mean, God love him. Those of us that know him, George is all about Jesus, man.
Yeah. No, but
We
it's
should get George on here sometime. If you've never met George.
oh yeah, we should for sure. But it's I've always said the same thing. Rico, Lodi, Pastor. Imagine if someone like The Rock just suddenly came out and started talking about, how many people, how many of these little kids that look up would go, huh, even if they didn't know what it was. What is that? What's he talking about? And then they go and they discover their faith. People don't realize like the influence that wrestlers have. I talk to my wife about it because she doesn't understand it. She's not a particularly big fan of the industry, but I try to explain it to her. It's a connection. It makes a connection to the audience. Like literally, like when I was watching it as a kid, I felt like you guys, like Rico and Lodi, like you guys were just part of my extended family. I used to watch you every week on TV as a little kid, right? So to me, I felt like I knew these guys. It's a
And
connection that you,
it's just like Lodi said, we're real people.
right?
It's not like a movie. Cut, they put a stunt man in. We are everything. We're the character, we're the persona, we are the stunt man, we are everything. So you see everything that this person is giving you.
Yeah,
And when people understand and commit, and you and I've talked about this before, Amir,
yeah,
when people commit to a character and you make the audience believe, you've got a platform extraordinaire,
Yeah.
because they believe in you. And I haven't told Lodi and Pastor this, but even though I was a heel and it was kind of frowned upon, when I went after a house show or after TV taping, I signed all the autographs that were asked and I took all the pictures,
yeah.
So the people knew when to hate me, but then they loved me afterwards.
Right,
I'm
right.
saying, and you could talk,
Yeah,
about Christianity, about anything,
yeah,
you know, put yourself out there, what your mind can conceive, your heart can achieve, you're limited by yourself,
yeah.
you know, the, people say the sky's the limit. Yeah, the sky is the limit. So what are you going to do? Why don't you reach for the stars?
Yeah,
If the sky is the limit, reach,
yeah,
grab that star,
yeah,
live your dream.
yeah.
Nothing's more powerful than the human spirit.
That's absolutely true. And we've been given this blessing, this gift to be here. So, let us share that good news of Christ. Let us share everything that we learn and help that next generation. But speaking of going back to the wrestling here for our wrestling contingent here, I want to go back to the beginning, Lodi. I want to talk about getting hired by WCW for a moment because what you did during Raven's Flock, I mean, with the signs and everything, that's how it
Right.
all started.
Yeah.
And it was very catchy, very original at the time. So how did you come to meet Eric? How did you come to get hired by WCW? Let's start there.
The entire story, and I don't mind telling it, and it's one of those you hear it and you're like, that's really how you got hired. And so Eric truly had nothing to do with it.
Okay.
And not that he's not a part of my story, because obviously he was the boss. I had been doing independent shows for about a year and a half throughout the Carolinas. Ran into a guy one night that was really good for George Weingroff, who was a wrestler, wrestled USWA, whatever, was good friends with Pez Watley, who's a trainer down at the power plant.
Yeah.
And we had done a big show down in Manio, North Carolina. And George had watched me and my tag team partner wrestle the Rock and Roll Express in the main event, a big indie show. And he came to our hotel room after and said, man, can I talk to you for a second? He said, you guys are just good enough to wrestle in high school and armories for the rest of your life. Congratulations. He said, but if you want to make some real money, you need to go down to Atlanta and try out for WCW at the power plant and let Pez Watley train you and see if you can make some money. And he said, I've said my piece. You guys have a good night. He walked out of the room. And my tag partner and I looked at each other. We're like, you think that's a legit? I mean, you think we should try? So we ended up making plans to go down like 3 weeks later and try out.
Okay.
And 27 guys showed up for the tryout. At the end of the 3 days, there were 3 guys left. Everyone else had quit.
Oh my gosh.
They invited one guy to come back. They invited me to come back. And then the third guy, they looked at him and said, hey, you're too small. We can't really use you. Congratulations on making it through. And the poor kid was like, well, do I get my money back? Because it cost us $250 to try out.
Yeah.
And so they're like, no, you don't get your money back. So I started the power plant. And I know this sounds random, but they're like, hey, you can come back and start. So I came back in a week, started paying down my $5,000 to go to wrestling school in 1997.
Wow. A lot of money.
Wow.
Packed up and moved to Atlanta.
Yeah.
And had a personal training studio in North Carolina that my girlfriend, who was in New York, came down and ran for me so I could go down to Atlanta. And I'd been there for maybe 2 months, 3 months. And I was out one night at a bar with one of the guys in the power plant. And Raven had just come down from ECW and started with WCW. My buddy said, hey, there's Raven. Let's go say hello. And I wasn't an ECW fan. I didn't get it. I didn't watch it. And because I didn't watch it and understand it, I just stayed away from it. And I'm like, I don't know him. I don't want to bug him. Go ahead. Yeah. So Johnny goes over, says hello, comes back immediately and said, Raven wants to meet you. I'm like, what? What do you mean Raven wants to meet me? And Rico, you're like, if you don't know Raven and you hear somebody says he wants to meet you, like, what? Why does he want to meet me? He had just moved down. He wanted to get in better shape. And I was a personal trainer, and I trained a lot of competitive bodybuilders. And Johnny said, hey, my buddy over there at the power plant is actually a personal trainer. So I go over and talk to him. He's like, tell me what you done, kid. And I start rattling off some of the guys I trained. And he just cuts me off, says, you're hired. We start tomorrow. Here's my address. Come pick me up at 12 o'clock. And I'm like, I just met this guy. In 10 minutes, he's hired me as a personal trainer.
Yeah.
That's Scotty.
So, you know Scotty, right? And so we go through this thing for a couple of weeks, and I'm training him. And he's like, hey, I got a proposition for you. When I'm out of town doing shows and stuff, I need somebody to pick up my dry cleaning, check my mail, that kind of stuff. How about if I hire you as more than my personal trainer? Would you be my personal assistant? He said, I'll give you $300 a week. And I'm like, I at that time, like I said, I still had my gym back in North Carolina, but I was at the power plant going to school every day. And I said, sure, whatever. I just, my weekends, I've got to go back and wrestle. I was wrestling the Carolinas, all over Georgia. And this goes on for a couple of months. And I actually went down and we had a show called the WCW Pro that was filmed down at Universal Studios.
Oh, yeah.
We go down every 3 months and film 2 weeks of that. And for 2 weeks, we filmed 3 months of TV. I had done that once already, went down and did a couple of enhancement matches. And I was at a bar one night with Raven. It's 11:30 on a Thursday night. Mm-hmm. And Raven's like, man, I'm tired of being on the road and not having you with me. I really wish you were on the road with me. And I'm sitting there thinking, yeah, me too. Because that means I've got a job.
Yeah.
He said, you know what? This sucks. I'm going to call Terry Taylor right now and get you a job. And he calls Terry Taylor. Yeah. And he said, Terry, you know Brad Kane down at the power plant? Yeah. How about if I put him in the flock on Monday at Nitro? Oh, yeah, I forgot. I didn't think about that. You're right. Well, thanks. Okay, cool. And he hangs up. And I'm like, that's all I heard. Yeah. And I'm like, well, that didn't go too well, huh? Sorry. That's kind of sucks. He goes, what do you mean? I said, well, it didn't sound like he wanted me in the flock on Monday at Nitro. He goes, no, I forgot we've got a pay-per-view Sunday. We fly out Saturday for Detroit. You start Sunday in Detroit. That's how I got my job.
Wow.
Timing. I've always said it's timing.
Yeah.
He made a phone call at 11:30 from a bar. And he looks at me and goes, you don't really look like a star, kid. Here we go. So I want to change the facial hair and stuff. Yeah. I've got dark hair at the time. Yeah. And he said, we need to make you look like somebody famous. Let's make you Billy Idol. And I'm like, I've got dark hair, and we're flying out Saturday morning. And like, he wants me to catch the 8 o'clock flight with him. He goes, you'll get your hair dyed tomorrow, get some black leather pants, some chains, the glove, a sneer, the whole 9 yards. You're going to be Billy Idol. And so the next day, I had to get my hair bleached like 3 times to get it blonde. They fried my scalp. It was horrific.
Yeah.
But we fly out Saturday morning. And I started, at the Palace at Auburn Hills at the pay-per-view where they beat up Scotty Riggs and put his eye out the whole night. Put him in the flock. And that was my first night on TV. And so that's how I got my job. That's how I met Raven. And then the whole personal assistant thing carried over on the TV. So our angle on TV, or characters we played on TV were us in real life.
Yeah.
We spent all the time together. I carried his bags. I did all this stuff. But Raven and I used to butt heads. Raven loves to argue, and Raven's one of the smartest, most intelligent guys I've ever spent time with.
I
And
agree with.
you know what it's like, Rico. You've been around him.
I
And
was
so
around him.
we butted heads a lot, and we would argue for 3 days over the color of the sky. It's light blue. I'm like, no, that's a dark blue. Nah, that's a light. I mean, we'd argue over the most ridiculous things, right? And randomly, after knowing each other for 6 or 7 months, one day I'm like, Raven, what are you getting me for my birthday? My birthday's coming up. He goes, my birthday's coming up. What are you getting me? I'm like, wait a minute. When's your birthday? He's like, mine's September 8th. I'm like, mine's September 8th. We share the same birthday. And we joked with some of our friends. We're like, you guys know we don't get along. It's like, because you're just alike. That's the problem. You're both hard-headed, both think you're smarter than everybody else in the room, and you just butt heads all the time. But Raven taught me more about this business, obviously gave me my start, and did so much for me. Without Raven, there's never a Lodi. I mean, I would have been another name, another character, another something else, I hope. But I don't know that I would have had the success that I had if it wasn't for Raven. And so I owe him a lot. He was very instrumental in my entire career.
Yeah. No,
Well, he's very wrestling savvy.
Absolutely.
I mean, the best. I mean, he gave me little advices here and there, and I listened because my father's always told me, listen twice as much as you talk, because that's why God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth.
yeah. Well,
And I listened to everybody who would come up and even talk to me. Just zip and listen.
Yeah. Wasn't Raven one of the youngest producers for Vince as Johnny Polo? He was.
Yes, they were grouped when he was doing the Superstars gimmick, announcing with Gorilla. They were grooming him obviously to be on the booking committee, and that got him a lot of heat with the boys.
Yeah,
because he was so young.
Yeah.
They're like, what did you ever do? Why in the world would you get that spot?
Yeah.
Like Hall and Nash hated Raven
in WCW the whole time.
Oh yeah, they made fun of him all the time. Scott Hall, and I love both those guys.
Yeah.
And it put me in a bad position because they butted heads. And Scott, I love dearly. I idolized him. We'll talk about idolizing a performer and someone you looked up to and who I felt like had it all. There was just Scott Hall. I could watch Scott Hall matches all day long and never get bored. He was one of my guys.
Yeah.
And to be able to travel with him and do some house show loops and get to know Scott as a friend was just, again, a blessing in the wrestling industry. But his nickname for Ray, they called him Scary Rock and Roll Guy. They made so much fun of him. It was, Nash asked me at one point, he's like, hey, he said, you do such a good job of getting, we laugh about it all the time because I got so much camera time going to the ring with all the guys from the flock. I didn't wrestle that much, but I was all over. Like when they released Thunder on the network, a lot of my kids at the wrestling school were like, bro, I'm trying to get through Thunder, and it's like the Lodi show. You're on there like 3 and 4 times a night.
Yeah.
Because the flock was, a big part of Thunder.
Yeah.
And Kevin Nash asked me once, he pulled me to the side, he goes, hey, have you ever thought about, doing something else? He said, we could probably use you in the NWO. And I'm like, Raven got me my job. Yeah. I could never leave Raven. And I've got one more story to put him over. I've been on TV for maybe 6-8 months, and J.J. Dillon walked up to me with an old FedEx pack. Everything used to come in a FedEx package. We get our tickets and stuff, whatever, paychecks, everything came in a FedEx pack. Yeah. And he walks up and goes, I got something for you. I think you're going to like it. And he hands it to me and walks off, and I open it up, and it's a contract for 2 years for $75,000 a year. And this is 1998. Okay. And I'm super excited. I got my first contract, not counting royalties, whatever, guaranteed money. And the next morning, I'm riding with Raven. We're back in Atlanta. And I tell him, and he said, let me see it. And he looks at it. And Raven drove his convertible. Always had the top down, winter, spring, summer, fall, top down, leather jackets on, whatever, freezing. He loved having the top down. And he looks at my contract, and we're on 285 in Atlanta. He goes, $75,000 a year, that sucks. And he goes to throw it. And I'm like, Raven, what are you doing? He goes, don't sign that. Yeah. You're not signing that contract. I'm like, what do you mean I'm not signing it? They just offer me a contract. He goes, put that away. He gets on his phone and he calls Eric Bischoff. And he said, Eric, I need to meet with you. And when can I do it? Wednesday? What time? 3:00? Okay. Next week at TV, JJ Dillon walks up to me. He goes, "Hey, Lodi, I got something for you." Hands me another FedEx pack. He goes, "Maybe you'll like this one." And I open it up, and it was a 3-year contract for 100, 110, and 125.
Wow.
Wow.
So when people ask me, like, why are you so loyal to Raven? Why are you so fond of Raven? He did a lot for me. He really did. I mean, I could go on, but those are two big stories there that
Wow.
it's hard. If there was nothing else, those two are enough, to me.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, you know what? Because I interviewed Raven about a year ago on this show.
Okay.
And I remember, I'd say most everybody else I'm kind of cool with, but I'd heard the stories about Raven. He was a tough cookie to, if he didn't like you, or he actually, we got along well. It was a really good experience. And I've texted him more recently, actually, and he responded back to me. So he's a nice guy. But it's just, oftentimes he says, oh, he's a narcissist and he's this and that. But I don't know, because a narcissist wouldn't do that for another person. If he really was so self-absorbed, there's no way he would do that for another person.
Right.
No.
Right.
Well, when he told me to go to the sideburns, like I said, he wanted the honky tonk or the rock, but I did the Wolverine thing. He goes, I'm not taking credit for that. I said, I don't care. It's you that put it in my head, and I'm giving you the credit. Yeah. So he's probably looking at this going, I don't want the credit.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But look what it turned out. I had a 7-year career, and it was just wonderful. And then Vince did his little political thing. I'm going to release you, want me to come back at a lesser rate and stuff like that. I asked for a raise. He said, you're not that popular. I said, I'm on the cover of the WWE magazine. I'm tag champions with Charlie Haas. And he stonewalled me. And I said, well, you got 90 days. If you don't sign that contract, I quit.
Yeah.
And I quit.
Yeah. Wow. And he went on.
I spent 3 weeks in All Japan, won the tag titles the first night with Bull Buchanan. And then after the 3 weeks, I'm like, I'm 44. I'm not going to be traveling Japan every 3 weeks. This is over. Went right back to police academy, got hired by the state, United States Marshals, and then I just kept going.
That's only not even an eighth of what he's done, Lodi, in his life. All right, I'm telling you, Rico's reinvented himself so many times over. It's like every week he'll tell me something else that he did. I wasn't even aware of it. Like, tell me what some of the other things you've done, Rico. Tell Lodi. Come on, I mean, list some of these things.
My gosh, I don't know. Stuntman. I played a bad guy in the Conan show. I was the Michael Keaton Batman in the stunt show at Six Flags. Power Team. I was a bodyguard, and for Pastor Andy, I bodyguarded big televangelists in my career.
Okay.
And I traveled in that circle and, met a lot of Billy Graham, Benny Hinn, Hagee.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. I even got to see Jim Baker.
Okay.
Right after he got out of jail.
Yeah.
But he couldn't speak on the pulpit. Yeah, he couldn't speak on the pulpit because the feds were there.
No, Rico, Pastor Andy said, did he try and sell you anything?
No, he was surrounded by feds. I met him with the client, and that was it. I think
I served 13 years as a deputy sheriff, so we.
No, so
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
was blessed with that
career. So yeah.
Yeah, it's incredible. But Lodi, so I want to keep the focus back on Lodi here for a bit here. So Lodi, after Raven's Flock, then you teamed with Lenny Lane, right? Lodi and Lenny, the West Hollywood Blondes. So how did that come to be? I mean, how did the parting of the ways? Well, actually, Raven left, right? Raven left.
Well, they broke the flock up. All the boys joke when I say all the boys. And Saturn, I saw Saturn recently for the first time in 15 years. It was great to reconnect with him. He even brought this story back up The guys, the flock, Scotty Riggs and Sick Boy and Raven and Saturn always joke that I was the death of the flock. We were in the ring one night, and there was a tendency for the fans. The flock always came out together. We walked back together in a group. And because I was the flunky of the group, very rarely in these big and wrestling we talked about earlier was really hot in the 90s, in the late 90s. So we're in front of sold out arenas and all the big domes and all that stuff. But when the flock would come out, 90% of the time, the fans would start chanting, Lodi sucks. Lodi sucks. It wasn't Raven sucks. It wasn't Raven Flock sucks. It was just Lodi. They singled me out because I was the flunky of the group and I was the goofy one and kind of the cheerleader, that Haskell of the group. And we were in the ring one night. I think we were beating up Benoit post match or something like that. And they were throwing stuff in the ring, and all the fans, the entire building. It was one of those big arenas, and the place was just echoing, Lodi sucks. And that got me a lot of heat with the flock members when I first started, because I'd done nothing. Saturn wanted to kill me. Legit. Raven pulled me aside. He goes, Saturn hates your guts.
Oh my
Oh
goodness.
my gosh.
1 second here, Lodi.
Yeah.
1 second, because this story sounds familiar. Rico, Billy, Gunn, you, Chance, sound familiar, Rico?
Yeah.
Same thing happened to Rico.
When I got finally into the stylist character,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you, when they brought me up, I barely knew how to wrestle. When I got called up, I had 8 matches. Oh no, I was there 8 months, had 12 matches, one of them with Honky Tonk Man, and I got called up. So, I was frowned on in the beginning, and then Vince told me to do this stylist character, and I said, "What kind of stylist? Hair stylist, foot stylist? What kind of stylist?" He goes, "Flesh it out," and he walked away from me. So for the first couple of weeks, I walked out black on black, but Stevie did that after Right to Censor. So I had to reinvent character. And while in a tanning bed, I went, stylist. No, I'm going to be an image consultant from New York, and I'm going to take these tag teams to the limit, And then I developed the character myself, and that's where it went. And that's, stuff like that. And about Perry Saturn, I want to say something about that. I had to wrestle Perry in a house show, and he gave me a clothesline, and he's an ex-Ranger. He's military. He hit me with a clothesline so hard here, it cracked 2 of my back molars.
Oh, wow.
And I'm spitting teeth.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my God, and I don't want to say nothing because I'm under developmental.
Right.
Not even called up. And Perry comes back after me and he goes, "What's wrong, kid?" I said, I'm spitting teeth. He goes, "Oh, that clothesline." I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "We're going to Johnny Ace right now." I said, No, I don't want to lose my job. And he dragged me to Johnny Ace and told him that he clotheslined me in the mouth, broke my teeth, and WWE fixed them.
Right.
Yeah. So,
but that's the Saturn I knew.
Yeah.
The Saturn, but the point, like I said, the booing, the "you suck," right? They used to chant, Rico sucks, just like you, right?
Oh,
So
yeah.
he would get all the heat, and Billy Gunn actually got upset because he was like, "What are you doing out there?" And he's like, "I'm not doing anything." So it's the same as you.
I lost the story. We came down, we're taking on another tag team, and I'm just standing there. I'm doing nothing. And the Rico sucks is 20,000,
Right.
and they're all yelling it, and Billy's in there wrestling. So he gives me crap after the match. "What are you doing? What are you doing?" I said, "I did nothing. I just stood there." He goes, "You're lying. You're lying." I said, "No." So the next week we come back and we're watching the show, and Billy sees that I'm just standing there. I didn't do one thing. And so he apologized. But when people want to go, they just go.
Right.
I mean, we wrestled the global warning, not warming, global warning tour in Australia. I think it was 2002. I was the first match out with Rikishi in a kiss my ass match. And we do the thing, and there's 60,000 people in this arena screaming Rico sucks in unison.
Right.
Nothing better feeling than that.
So
you're doing your job.
yeah.
Yeah.
So Lodi, back to you. Okay.
Well, that's where I got heat with the boys, because in the flock, initially when I first started, I got that kind of reaction Rico's talking about, and all I was doing my job, which is exactly what Raven told me to do.
Yeah.
All the antics you saw from Lodi on TV were basically Johnny Polo ripoffs that Raven told me to go out and do. And so I'm going back to his genius mentality of seeing wrestling like tic-tac-toe for him. He just knows what works.
Yeah.
Yep.
But Raven would tell me, pull me aside, like Riggs and Saturn, who had many years more in the business already, they weren't getting that kind of attention. And here was this green kid out of the power plant who's getting all the attention. And he's like, you're too cocky to be so green. And I didn't know any better at the time. And now I realize in hindsight, they were right. And I get it. Paige, for instance, I was close with Paige because Paige brought in Raven. And so all the flock was kind of under Paige's, we called him the Emperor, under his umbrella.
Yeah.
And he hated it so much, Rico. He stopped me from going to the ring with the flock members because he felt like the Lodi sucks chant took away from his match.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
He would make me stay in the back. He's like, Lodi, you're not coming out tonight. You get too much heat.
Wow.
Wow.
See,
And
Billy
I'm like,
Billy
Paige,
wasn't in
that's the whole
charge of
deal.
that.
If they're hating me, they're loving you.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you distract. We're not gonna have you out there tonight.
Yeah.
But the whole thing with the flock ending, we're beating Benoit up, they're throwing the trash in, the Lodi sucks chants are echoing. Just like Rico was saying, we come back through the curtain, and right that gorilla position was Bischoff and Hogan.
Mm.
And Raven was the one that had me do the sideburns, but do them dark when I had the blonde hair.
Blonde hair.
What I
Yep.
didn't think about was Hogan,
Yeah.
who had the exact
Oh.
same thing.
Yeah.
Oh.
And you're hearing the Lodi sucks chants. There's the NWO's the bad guy group. Here's the flock, the other bad guy group. We come through the curtain, and Hogan goes, "Hey, Lodi, nice sideburns, kid." And everybody's like, "Oh boy,
Yeah.
this is not going to be good."
Yeah.
And shortly thereafter,
The same thing happened to Billy Gunn.
Yeah.
After the wedding. Did you see the wedding?
Yes.
Okay. Because Billy wanted to go on his own. And he wanted to be known as Mr. Ass. Had his tights made up, this and that. And he was good. That's why they broke up Billy and Chuck. And I went to 3-minute warning. And then Billy's all ready to go out as Mr. Ass. Undertaker returns from injury. And now he reinvents himself as the American Badass.
Mm.
Well, Billy Gunn's out. Now he's not Mr. Ass. He's
Nope.
the one Billy Gunn. Because Undertaker came out with the chopper and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I can understand what Hogan did to you because they did it to Billy and I was there.
So,
Yes,
so,
sir.
so then Lodi, I mean, gosh, you got us on a cliffhanger here now. So you go back, Hogan said, nice sideburn kid. So then what happens next? What
Well,
happens?
They started shortly after that happened, they started the whole angle to wrap up the flock, to have Saturn become my slave, my subservient, gimmick, whatever, until the pay-per-view where he was wrestling Raven. If Saturn wins, the flock goes free. If Raven wins, Saturn stays in the flock forever. And of course, to end the flock, Saturn won, set us all free, and we all went off on our own.
Yeah.
But that was the whole thing. That was not supposed to happen for quite a while, and then they kicked that into overdrive shortly after that episode with Hogan in the gorilla position.
Wow.
Now,
Wow.
how did Raven feel about that? Because obviously he's very outspoken. How did he feel about that?
He knew eventually the whole flock thing was going to be broke up, and he was going to break off and do some things with Canyon and Sandman and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So he had something for him. Now, the flip side of that is there was nothing for Lodi.
Hmm.
And so all of a sudden, I go from being on every single TV show. We were on Nitro. We were on Thunder. We were on every Saturday night. We were on every pay-per-view. we didn't miss anything. House shows on the weekends. So all of a sudden, Lodi by himself, they had nothing really for me. Terry Taylor gave me a gimmick where I started carrying a foreign object in my shorts, and I put it in my glove. I'd like do the job the entire match. And at the very end, I run over the corner and stick a foreign object in my. I had the Lodi glove instead of the loaded glove. Boom, hit somebody on Saturday night, knock them out, and get a win.
Yeah.
But other than that, they didn't really have anything for me. And so Lenny Lane, who was an enhancement guy at the time, came up to me to TV. He's like, Lodi, what are they doing with you these days? And I'm like, and I didn't know Lenny at all, other than just, hey, Lenny, hey, Lodi. That was it. I said, really nothing, bro. He said, what do you think about us being a tag team?
Yeah.
And I looked at him, and here's an enhancement guy. And that, I don't mean that in a bad way. That was just his job. And I looked at him and I said, what are we going to be, Lenny and Lodi, the losers? I'm like, no. We're like, at that time, we were some of the shortest guys at WCW because the guys were still big back then, unlike today. And that's a whole other subject. But Lenny's like, no, I got an idea. And I'm like, what? He said, do you remember the cartoon gimmick on Saturday Night Live, the ambiguously gay duo? What if we did something kind of like that as a tag team? And I'll give you an idea. Like we could do a vignette where we're walking down the beach and we're eating ice cream cones, and my ice cream cone, the ice cream falls off, and you're like, here, Lenny, have some of mine. And I'm like, this is a horrible idea. And I'm like, he's like, but I was close with Nash, and Nash was booking at the time. Okay. And Lenny looked at me and goes, bro, I know you're tight with Nash. You can go pitch it to Nash. It'll work. And I'm like, I didn't want to take that idea to Nash. Yeah. I'm like, no, I can't do this. Yeah. So I'll never forget, I told Lenny, I said, do this for me. Type it up and bring it to TV. And if you bring it to me typed up, I'll go put it in Nash's hands. No wrestler's going to go home and type up an angle and bring it to TV. 2 weeks later, I get to TV. Lenny runs up as soon as I get there. Here you go, Lodi. And he hands me 3 typed pages.
Oh, man.
And I look at it, Andy, and the guys, and the first sentence goes, this is not a gay gimmick. And I look at him, I'm like, bro, what? We can't take this to Nash. He goes, trust me, take it to him. It's the whole story of how we're going to act like we're, but we're really not. We're actually going to be brothers. But the whole thing is we'll tease like we're effeminate, et cetera, whatever. And we'll push the envelope a little bit. But when it comes out, and I'm like, he said, you promise, bro. So I said, all right, come on. So I walked down to where they'd set up Kevin's office. I said, Kevin, can I talk to you for a second? He's like, Lodi, what's up? Come on in. And I'm like, I got something for you. I got an idea. Would you look it over and let me know what you think? And Nash is sitting at a desk, and I hand it to him, and he looks at it. He reads it out loud. He goes, this is not a gay He looks up at me. He's like, Lodi, we can't do this here. And he throws it up in the air. He's like, get out of here. Yeah. He kicks me out of his office. And so we walk out, and he's like, well, at least you tried. And I'm like, thanks, Lenny. That really got us nowhere. And so I was living in West Hollywood at the time, very good friends with Ross Foreman, who's now vice president at TNA. And Ross Foreman was really tight with Kevin. And so I go back home. I do a couple more TVs. We don't hear anything about it. And I'm out in West Hollywood. I'm actually over in Hollywood having a meeting with my manager at the time. And I get a phone call, and it's Ross Foreman. And I'm like, Ross, I'm like, hello. He said, hey, what are you doing? Having a meeting. He goes, you're going to get a phone call in about 5 minutes from Kevin Nash. They're going to run with that Lenny and Lodi angle. I got to go. Click. And I'm like, what? And I just put the phone back down, and I kid you not, in 5 minutes, my phone rings, and it's Kevin Nash. He's like, hey, Lodi, what are you doing next Monday? And I'm trying to play like I had no clue. I'm like, I don't know. What's going on Monday? And he said, you want to come to Nitro? I'm like, why? He said, well, remember that thing you gave me? I'm like, yeah. He goes, let's see what we can do with it.
Wow.
And that's how the whole thing came about.
Yeah.
And so there you have Lenny and Lodi, the West Hollywood Blondes, and they allowed us to run with it. And we had so much fun, truly. Lenny was a guy I didn't know very well. And like I said, just a hello, how are you? And we went from not knowing each other to riding in cars together, shared hotel rooms, flying together, wrestling together tonight, working out together every day. We're on the road, and just became best friends. And I think the chemistry we had on camera was a carryover from the relationship we forged in real life. It's just so many of the things we did. Now, we laid our matches out. We knew what we were doing, but there were so many ad-lib things we came up with on the fly in the ring that got over. That was just us being us.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, it was so funny because all the boys are, we're pro wrestlers, we're big, we're masculine, we're tough guys. And it never failed. We'd show up at catering every day, and all the guys would see us walk in together, and they would make some slur or something, whatever, like, make some jokes. But within 5 minutes of making jokes, Kurt Hennig or Steve Regal or Dave Taylor would be like, "Hey, Lodi, come here for a second." "Yes, sir. What do you need?" He goes, "How about you guys do this tonight?" And they would give us the spots.
Yes.
The best spots. Like Lenny and I didn't have to come up with anything because the boys fed us more stuff than we could ever do in the ring. It
Wow.
was great, And
Yeah.
so, what a fun time for me in my career and my life, as
Well,
far as
because you
growing
took
up
it to
watching
the
wrestling.
you took it to the edge.
Yeah,
Nobody else was doing it.
Right.
You
Right.
took it to the edge. It entertained the boys,
oh
and
yeah,
they put their input. They put their input because they're like, "Oh, try this." And that's the same thing I did with the fans when I signed autographs.
yeah.
They go, "You know what would be funny? What?"
Write it
And they
down.
would tell me, and I'd write it down. And then I'd go sit in the 30-minute tanning booth, and I would think of new spots. And I told this to Amir. I said, the best compliment I ever got from a fan. And he goes, "Do you know why I watch you, Rico?" I said, "No." He goes, "Because I don't know what you're going to do from this week to next week."
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you can do that, capture their attention, whatever it is. I mean, I'm glad you had the boys telling you what was good, people who were respected in the business, because it
right.
helps,
Absolutely.
It's just wonderful.
Yeah,
You
it was
know.
it was a great team. I mean, I remember it back in the day. I always used to confuse as a youngster back then. I used to confuse Lenny with Chris Jericho because he looked so much like him,
They were very
and
similar, right?
very similar. But Chris had already left, right? Chris was gone. He was in WWE, so he was
By that time, yes, he was gone. Yeah.
okay.
Well, what it is Chris, Benoit, Saturn, Eddie Guerrero,
Right.
correct?
All of
Those
them.
were the first four that defected.
Chris went on his own, and then the Radicals went over.
Yeah.
Dean
Okay.
Malenko
Team
went with
Malenko.
him.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right.
Malenko went with him.
Yeah, I think so. So, gentlemen, so Lodi, we'll wrap up this segment of you and WCW, and then Lodi, Pastor Rico. I think we should do a part 2 here because we've already gone here for about an hour and 10 or so.
Oh,
So
wow.
Yeah.
so we'll break it up because I usually like to keep the episodes to about an hour or so, Lodi.
Okay.
So let's wrap up the WCW section here. So you were with WCW right till the closure, correct?
Lenny and I both got let go within a couple of months of WWE buying the company.
Okay.
Lenny had gotten hurt, and we were off TV for about 8 weeks while he rehabbed. And I get a phone call on a Friday afternoon, and they let me go. And it was a joke. We're like, so because we were always together. I would see people, and if I wasn't with Lenny, they'd be like, "Hey, Lenny," I mean Lodi, and they'd do the same thing to Lenny because we were always together. And I truly am like, you guys are letting me go. At one point we had 180 some guys on contract.
Yeah.
And right there at the very end, we were down to 60 something. Okay. And after we got taken off TV by Glad, we begged for our release.
Okay.
Jim Ross had got in touch with us through Matt Hardy. Matt called me and said, "Hey, Jim can't talk to you, but JR said if you guys can get out of your contract, you have a job with WWE." I talked to Paul Heyman 101 when I was up there with Raven, because Raven had gone to ECW, and I would go to some of the house shows with him. And he said, "Lodi, I'll put you guys on TV tomorrow. Just get out of your contract." Mm-hmm. And we asked JJ Dillon Weekly because they didn't have anything for us, and they wouldn't let us back on TV. I'm like, let us. He's like, "No, you guys are the future of the company. You're the future of the company." And then they let us both go. As the ship's going down. But by that point, Vince already hired so many guys.
Yeah.
They weren't hiring anyone else. And so I was kind of left in limbo at the time.
Yeah, that's a shame, but I obviously for a reason, you're here now, you're doing other things.
Yes, sir.
But there's so many questions that people still have about WCW. They still say, I mean, we saw the Who Killed WCW on Vice, right? So from you though, again, you're the only one on this screen that was ever in WCW. In your opinion, what was it that led to was it one person or was it an idea? What was it that you think finished it off.
I say this a lot, and I know it's been beat to death. I feel like what I witnessed, because I started at the height. They were in the middle of the 83 weeks run when I started, or at the beginning of it or so, but they were already hot when I started on TV. So, the top 12 guys, that whole creative control thing that they had, it was legit and it was real. And I can share lots of stories with you about that. And I even had Terry Taylor explain it to me one time. He got really upset with me. I carried a sign out on TV one night that said Hoovy versus Kidman, best of 7,398, because they wrestled all the freaking time.
Right.
And it was kind of a joke. Terry Taylor got legit hot at me and was like, where? And Terry and I were close, and I felt like we had a good relationship, but Terry was legitimately upset. And he is just wearing me out he said, you don't know what my job is like, blah, blah, blah. And Kidman found out I was getting in trouble. And Kidman came down in the middle of the argument and said, Terry, I told him to write it, which he didn't.
Okay.
But Terry's like, really? And he's like, yeah, it was my idea. And Terry's like, both of you, get out of here. But Terry grabbed me later. He said, Lodi, here's my issue. And here's why it hurt my feelings. You put that on a sign. We work so hard to write TV. And let's say, just make something up, but let's say I've got Lex Luger wrestling Diamond Dallas Page on Monday.
Yeah.
And we've got the show written out. Well, Lex shows up. He goes, I'm not working with DDP. Well, who do you want to work with? Well, I'll work with Scott Norton. Well, he's working with Sting. I don't care. I'll work with Scott Norton. So then they got to start rewriting the card.
Yeah.
I heard it was called the War Room.
Yes, the War Room. But that started happening every week. And I'll give you one example that I think explains what I'm getting at. They were having to redo TV and when I first started, we had to be at the building at 2:00. When I walked in at 10 till 2 or 5 till 2, or if I was the Raven and showed up really late, the board was always up. Every match, the whole thing, it was laid out for you. You knew what you were doing. As things started to go downhill and guys started making all these changes, it got to be where the board wouldn't be up until 4 or 5 o'clock.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's 5 or 5:30. We go live at 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Here's the death nail. Here's the story. We flew in way more guys for Nitro than we ever needed. If we had 50 guys or 40 guys on the show, we had 100 guys there. And if you were on the show, you realized once the show was getting started, you left early. I kid you not, true story. I love Arn Anderson to death, and Arn was one of the main agents. It was 7:30, and there was no board.
Oh,
yeah. That's terrible.
We go live at 8 o'clock. We got 30 minutes, and no one knows who's working. Arn Anderson walks into the locker room. Everybody, I got an announcement. Everybody get dressed. I don't know, and I'm taking out the colorful language. I don't know who's working with who. Everybody get dressed, just in case.
Wow.
And so everybody starts getting dressed. It's 7:30.
Oh my gosh.
And we're going live in front of, millions of people in 30 minutes, and we don't even. And so that's what Terry told me. Terry's like, I can put Hoovy and Kidman out there, and I know they're going to give me a good opening match.
Yeah.
But I don't know what else I've got, because I get there and I got to rewrite TV every week for the undercard guys and things, whatever, because the upper card was changing. And so it got to be a mess, almost like the inmates running the asylum. You had too much control and not enough people saying no.
Yeah.
And I think that ultimately, along with an open pocketbook to do whatever we wanted financially, was another death nail. But you put all that together, and it was just bad business model.
Yeah, that's terrible. I can't imagine working in condition like that where it's just.
I've heard of that, and that was the rumors I heard.
It's the truth. It was very. And
it's
again,
not a rumor now. You've just
being a part of it and watching. Like I said, it was always up pre 2 o'clock, and then all of a sudden it's 3 o'clock, and then all of a sudden and it just slowly moved closer and closer to showtime.
Because people were arguing.
Well,
I'm not working
absolutely.
with this one.
And that
I'm not
became the
working with
norm.
this one. Or if I gotta work, and I have to do a job, you got to bring 4 other guys in to damage
I got to get
me
beat up
so
by
this
4
guy
guys
can
or
deliver.
another.
Yeah. That's
I
that's crazy, man. I can't believe that well, I saw it on TV, watching it as a spectator as a kid. I remember I couldn't it's not that I wanted to tune out of WCW at the time, because actually at the time in the late 90s, I was watching WCW more than I watched WWE. I mean, I pretty much switched off. Once Degeneration X hit,
Yeah.
shortly after that, I tuned out for all of 98 and the majority all of 99 too. I
Yeah.
was watching WCW exclusively, but at that time the stories were congruent. The
Yeah.
stories, they were linear. They told a story. And then I remember in the 2000s turning it on, I didn't even recognize it. I was like, "What?" Like
Oh,
from week to week that story began, it ended, it didn't exist anymore. I was like, "What the heck's going on here?"
it was horrible TV.
Yeah, it was just unbelievable. But anyway, we'll talk more about that. But Pastor, I want to bring you in as we come to the close here, because Pastor, the next time we do this, we're going to be getting into the real nitty gritty, the real true story, the real saving grace, finding Christ and everything else. So maybe you can give us a little foreshadow, Pastor, into what Lodi went through after that, after pro wrestling, and what we'll cover on the next episode to tease our audience here.
Yeah, I mean, it's like we mentioned earlier, the the platform and all the different opportunity to be a known personality, if you will, or at least familiar to some degree, has really extended into something even greater than anything that we could have ever done in the wrestling business or anything else for that fact. But we were able to use that platform, and that's what brought Lodi and I together. We met through a wrestling deal, but it was our faith. It was really the bond of understanding. Okay, yeah, we have yeah, we got some linkage between wrestling, but really what brought us together and now continues to grow our friendship is our mutual faith in Christ. And again, being able to present that through a men's ministry that Brad's got in Charlotte, that's just awesome. And some of the other things that we've been able to do, and then our mutual connection through Nikita and all the different guys that we come to know and love. It really, like we mentioned earlier, it's just awesome. I mean, to be able to use the talents and the skills and the platforms that the Lord gave through different times in life. I mean, I was nobody in the wrestling business ever, but I got to do it when I was a young kid, and it was that. And I tell people this all the time when I share my testimony is I was the shyest kid in the room when I was growing up. I never raised my hand in class. I didn't want the teacher to call on me because I was horrified at public speaking. My minor blip on the map foray into wrestling allowed me to have enough confidence to talk in front of a group because I wore a mask, I could hide, and it gave me that confidence, which later evolved into me being a police officer for 13 years, which now for 25 years I've been a pastor. Yeah, I'm the old guy in the room, but it's like, but all of it works together, and so I love this next conversation we're going to have another time.
Yeah, next conversation, definitely Lodi. I want to go into how you came to know Christ. I want to talk everything post WCW. I know you had trials and tribulations. I want to be able to share those to help those who may be going through something similar on the next episode. So audience, we've given you all the wrestling, all the powwow on this
gave you
episode.
all the foundation.
All
Now
the
you got the foundation. Now let's move up to present times.
Yeah.
Because there is life after wrestling. And some of these wrestlers don't understand it. I was lucky enough to, when I left in 2005, went to police academy, and I got hired September 2005 by the state of Nevada. And in 6 months, I got hired by the United States Marshals. So there is life after wrestling,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I like to share that with the fans also. Lodi's a great example. Pastor, we need to talk about that because, the future, is more important. You can't keep sitting on your laurels,
Right.
Yeah.
as the old saying goes,
Yeah.
and if we can use our platforms to present that to people, that's a blessing.
Absolutely.
And Lodi, you mentioned, Pastor, you mentioned the men's ministry. What is the name of that? And could I put a link in the description of this video?
Absolutely. It's called the Weight Room Revival.
Weight
And
room.
it's weight as in WAIT, even though we have it in my gym and in a weight room, we call it the weight room revival. And it's just a place for where we do it every other month for men to come together and we talk about, we bring in speakers like Pastor Andy and some former wrestlers and guys who are, other pastors to come in and speak and talk about how to be more biblical, godly men in today's broken world. Because I feel like so many of us that I run across in churches and guys I speak to, and they're just not following the model that's laid out for us in the Bible to be a good, solid, biblical Christian man. And I feel like we need to get back to that.
We do need to get back to
But
that.
we do it from the wrestling ring. We
That's
stand
the
in
best part. Like
wrestling
behind
ring. It's
Andy, we
awesome.
stand in the ring at my gym, because I have a wrestling school at my personal training studio. And so we put the speakers in the ring and we put 50 chairs out and we feed the guys and we have dinner and we have a great time.
Wow, I tell you what,
Excellent.
I'm looking forward to next episode here because I want to get into this. I want to get you mentioned there about the broken world and Pastor Andy and I, Rico, when you were out, unfortunately, when you had your accident, Pastor Andy and I, yep, when you hurt your finger, we talked about again the platform we've been given. We talked about the state of the world right now, so this is important. So again, viewers, make sure that you lay the smackdown on the subscribe button because you will not want to miss part 2 of this. It's going to be a lot different from part 1. But on that note, Rico, lead us out, please, if you will.
As I've always said, and I said to Pastor Andy and Lodi, I know they believe it. What your mind can conceive, your heart can achieve.
Yep, plain as simple as that. All right. Well, Lodi, thank you for joining us on this episode. It's been an absolute
Thank you
pleasure.
for having me.
Yeah, absolute pleasure.
See you, brother.
Thank you, Pastor Andy, for joining
Pastor
us
Andy.
as well.
Thank you, my friend.
Absolute pleasure. And Rico, God bless all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week right here on Styling. Take care and God bless.